everyone. Welcome back to Red Daily. Guess what time it is again? It's Thursday, so that means it's 3 Things Thursday. Last week, I told you about 3 things I thought you should add to your makeup bag. I gave you 3 different price points. If you want to check that video out, it's in the description box below. Please check it out. We're on to our next 3 Things Thursday, and today we're talking about 3 podcasts I think you should add to your podcast feed. Now, wait a minute. Please tell me you know what a podcast is. If you don't, that's okay. There's plenty of time to get into them. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. And we'll talk a little bit about how it's competing with blogging and how it's stacking up. So if you've never heard of a podcast, this is the first time you're hearing about it, let me tell you a little bit about podcasts. Podcasts are basically blogs, but in audio form. Or they're like mini talk shows on the radio shows. Anybody can have one, and really anyone has one. You could be famous and you get one. You decided to start your own podcast. Actually, my friend Kasha and I have started our own podcast recently, but we'll talk more about that later. So, whether it's your first time listening to a podcast or you're in a rut and you need a new one, let's jump into 3 podcasts I think you should add to your podcast feed. Number 1 is Getting Curious by Jonathan Van Ness. Now, Jonathan, you may know who he is. He is on the revival of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and he is just over the top, a sweet soul, and just the nicest person probably anybody's ever met. He's a hairdresser, and he has done the hair of Tess Holliday, of Denise Bidot. He is just loves women. He loves Game of Thrones. He loves people. He just loves doing hair. He likes making people fierce. Now, he's kind of all over the place in this podcast, and that's okay. He does bring it back to the conversation. So anything that he's curious in, he's going to bring an expert in on the show. I believe he's doing episodes every single week now. It used to be every other week. But he's gotten so popular that he said, why not do one every week? So what can you expect on the podcast? Well, he has had episodes such as How Can We Be Less Rude to Bees? Yes, where he discussed the importance of bees and how we can help be a little bit more friendly toward the bees. Also, what do white people need to know about racism? He brought in an expert on racism, or maybe a pseudo expert, but basically somebody who knows a lot about race and how race relations go in the United States. And, maybe a little less heavy of a topic, he brings in like Denise Bidot, who is one of the first plus size models to open and close a show on New York Fashion Week. And then he also brought in some Olympic stars to talk about how do you nail a triple axel. So you're gonna get the gamut. Plus, Jonathan is just so fun to listen to. And even though he uses slang and is goofy with things, you can tell that he is really smart and he wants to know and be informed about different things. So that's why I like Jonathan's podcast, Getting Curious. The second one, maybe you might think this isn't for me when I tell you the name of it. The name might turn you off a little bit. Okay. It's called The Bible Binge. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm not Catholic, I'm not Christian, you don't even go to church, maybe you're a Creaster, maybe you're Muslim, maybe you're Jewish. It doesn't matter. These are all stories from the Bible, but told by comedians and told from a pop culture standpoint. If you've heard of the Popcast with Knox and Jamie, these are the exact same hosts. I absolutely love both of them, but Jamie Golden takes the cake. She is hilarious, and she has just a funny point of view on everything. They take all of these stories from the Bible and they bring them into a sense of what we can understand through pop culture. So they might cast Morgan Freeman as God. They might cast Edward Cullen as Cain, and they might cast Daniel Radcliffe as Abel. Yes, all things that you could probably understand, and it's just hilarious. But they also have a gentle rebuke at the end where they have a resident Bible scholar comment on where they went wrong and how we can understand the Bible better. Now, if you're Jewish or you're Muslim or you don't believe, it's just good to be informed about what Christians believe, right? And also, it's just really funny. Like, most of the time, I'm just waiting to hear the funny comments from Jamie, which check her out on social media, on Instagram, Jamie B. Golden. I know my friend Katie and I, we get just the biggest kick out of her. She uses terms like passy-aggressy instead of passive-aggressive. She's my kind of girl. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to do a personal plug for my own podcast with Kasha, my friend. We are doing a podcast called Soul School. Now, Soul School is a podcast that brings you conversations that matter, but mostly love and acceptance. Not every week, let me tell you, it's in its infancy. Every week we bring you, why do I keep saying every week? It's not every week. It's whenever we get to it. We've already done our intro episode, and we've also done one other episode on stress management, which we went for a long time on that one, but it's so important to talk about these things. We're gonna have a series on Rise Sister Rise coming up, if the podcast will ever let me edit it. And we just want to bring conversations to anybody pretty much ages 13 and up, and their parents, maybe your teachers, anybody that needs to hear these things. And we want to educate people from the soul. That's why we call it Soul School. So we will be having different conversations about health and wellness, about suicide prevention, about how to take care of your body, how to manage stress, what it means to rise in today's society. We're going to cover a lot of things, but we're going to ask you to be a little patient too, because it's literally a little tiny baby in its infancy, and we're just getting started. But what would mean the most to us is if you subscribe and let us know how you like it, so that we can continue to stay inspired to create our podcast. So if you've never heard of a podcast, I really urge you to try one out from this list. They're free. That's the great thing. Podcasting in general is pretty free. You can support people through Patreon, and then you get extra content, which is pretty nice. The last thing I'm going to say is people are saying blogging is dead because podcasting is the new blog. I sure hope that that is not true, because I love blogging, but I also love podcasting. So I really encourage you to get out there, read blogs, take in all of the different kind of media that you can, and support the things that you love. I love these 3 podcasts with all my heart and soul, because they have brought so much to my life, and I hope they bring something to you this week. Let me know what you think, and please share your podcast suggestions with me, because it's like you could never have enough podcasts in your podcast feed, even though mine are like piling up. So don't get overwhelmed, just jump in, try one, and I promise you, you will find yourself probably smiling. Some are on the sadder side. They might make you cry. Some might make you feel scared. There's some really good scary podcasts out there, but there's something for everyone. So I encourage you to try podcasting this week if you haven't. And if you have, I hope you found something new this week. All right, that's it for 3 Things Thursday. See you next week. Bye.